hmm Being a PCO is a great way to build our bench. Yes. hmm Future candidates, and after actively participating in your party, making connections in your community, and learning about campaigns, you may decide to run for one of the 2,000 plus elected positions in Washington state. Yes. Now, obviously, there are certain constraints of those 2,000 elected positions. Yeah. hmm But of course, you can move to a different county or legislative district. And you could decide to start your own precinct because you're unhappy with the other individuals that were in the other precinct. Yes. But the state's rules for establishing precincts, what are those? It looks like that somebody gets upset. hmm And the 7,500 precincts in the state of Washington, most of which have registered voters. Now, some of them don't. I would think they all should. Now, some precincts don't have residential addresses and are used by counties for purposes besides elections. Yeah. Well, what purpose is that? Now, this precinct structure that we have of the 7,500 precincts, and the typical precinct ranges from 300 to 950 voters. Yeah. And between 55 to 220 precincts in each legislative district. Yeah. And between 49,000 to 86,000 voters in each legislative district. Right. And legislative districts are determined by population. This seems somewhat of an arbitrary system of elections. Uh, I just wanted to know the bylaws. What are the actual criteria necessary to establish a precinct? Why would there be any precincts that are being used for any other purpose other than elections? Yes. And when you run for precinct candidacy officer, yeah, PCO, exactly what the fuck are you doing if it's not for an election? Now, I'd really like to look at the structure of the elections of the United States. Because it looks to me like this state has intentionally obstructed approximately 2 million voters from participating. Yes, because those individual residents just don't have time to go online and fill all this out, and they don't want to vote by mail. In fact, they don't really care about the elections until the night of the election, where they decide afterwards, well, I might as well go over there and might as well vote because we probably should do it. Now, these individuals called United States citizens that are, well, lazy, busy. I planned on watching television that night, but I guess I should do it. I think we need to make a lot easier way of voting where, as long as you have a driver's license, yes, learner's permit, valid form of identification from the United States military, pooch, something that has your picture and your actual identity on it and maybe some sort of supporting document. Yes. Do you pay a utility where you live at? Is the electricity on? Yeah. See, the last time I voted, all that was required was a driver's license and proof of utility of the residence that I was the actual owner of. Yes. That was in Vancouver, Washington. Now, from that time until this time, maybe you started all this. But I think it's really important that we don't register to vote as voters. Yes. Now, the Democratic Party, they like to know. They like to know those that have already identified themselves as Democrats. Yes. Because it talks about who do you reach out to? Mm. Who do you want to speak to about electing one of your candidates to office? Now, let's say you didn't know. There was no registering to vote. It was just you were a citizen of the United States. The 10 congressional districts in the state of Washington, each congressional district represents approximately 700,000 persons. Yes. And you're out there, you're knocking on the neighbor's door. I'm here to inform you of the Democratic Party of the state of Washington. Yeah. And we'd like you to vote for us. Well, the guy answers the door and he says, listen, okay. No, listen. I'm Republican, and there's no way that you're going to convert me to your religion known as democracy. I think we were really obstructing the availability of the population from being introduced to different political parties? Yes. Now, we tried to make it as easy as we could for the two-party system. Yeah, we did. But the way that I see it, this two-party system that you decided is really obstructing people that wouldn't vote because they're not registered and you don't know what party they would vote for. Yes. From being influenced, yes, to vote for your party. Now, of all the registrations for actual voting, is there anywhere on that form where you identify yourself as a party member? Now, I have a paper copy of it here someplace. Yeah. Let me see. Do you have to identify the party that you're going to vote for before you vote for them? I think we should make it a little difficult for the precincts to not know. Yes. And if they don't know, then they're going to have to talk to each of the individuals in their communities. And then they're going to have to explain why they should vote for their candidate for office. Now, let's see here. The actual registration voter form. Yes. I am a citizen of the United States. Yes. Qualifications, phone number, email address. Washington State voter registration form. Register online at www.votewa.gov. Yeah. I don't have a state issued driver's license because somebody falsified it. Yes. Now it says here, I declare that the facts of the voter registration form are true. I'm a citizen of the United States. Lived at this address in Washington State for at least 30 days immediately before the next election at which I vote. At least 18 years old when I vote. I'm not disqualified from voting due to the court order of mental incompetence. Yeah. And I haven't committed any felonies where I'm under the Department of Corrections supervision. So, now I know there's a big concern when you go to vote that somebody that does have a felony could be voting. Oh my gosh. Or quite possibly the crazy individual that had multiple mental health evaluations was voting. But there is the idea that we could be ostracizing. Yes. Now, notice knowingly providing false information about yourself or your qualification for voter registration, Class C felony. Could get up to 5 years for this and up to, or a fine of $10,000 or both. But let's say, okay, I informed law enforcement. Yeah. I wasn't in Sequim, Washington. Yes, but you decided to prosecute me. I wasn't in Brennan. Yeah, but you decided to prosecute me. I'm not delusional, schizophrenic, or bipolar, but you wouldn't remove the fraud of the mental health evaluations. And if I tried to vote without knowing, I mean, I really don't know, am I technically, yes, when having cases dismissed for incompetence, would I knowingly be providing false information about myself when the mental health evaluations are all that's necessary to obstruct my right to vote? Now, as much as I wouldn't want to go to prison for voting, I would say that this state's getting sued for knowingly falsifying any and all evidence that would say that I was in Sequim, Washington on December 31st, 2015. And then knowingly using the court system to obstruct my right to vote so that I would not be arrested and imprisoned for 5 years and I wouldn't get a fine of up to $10,000 or both. Now, let's say we just looked at it for just a quick second. You're having an election now. Individual shows up, has a driver's license and a recent utility bill. And in the last 30 days was an actual resident of the state of Washington. Is there a system that could be... Oh, you have a felony, criminal felony. Yes, and you're crazy. You've had multiple mental health evaluations where you went through restoration treatment and you're currently on lithium. They involuntarily admitted me to Western State Hospital. Even though I said I didn't do it, they would believe what I had to say right now.